You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Podcast, where you get a masterclass in child-centered play therapy and practical support and application for your work with children and their families. In today's episode, we are discussing two questions from Mara in North Carolina. And one is about house tree person, and one is about the use of consumables in the playroom, a la glue and paint. So different topics, but both helpful questions. So I'm looking forward to diving into those. Before we get there, just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, it is officially August. So happy August, the 8th month of the year. We're right in the middle of third quarter. So this year is flying by, and my grandma, who is no longer with us, but was my absolute favorite person on this whole earth. She was born in August, and my great-grandmother was born in August. So very special month to me. And the birthstone for August, I have quite a few pieces of jewelry to honor them. So for all of you born in August, happy birthday. And it's one of my favorite months to honor two very special ladies in my life. All right, let's dive into this question first, the house tree person question, and then we'll move into glue and paint and other things like that in just a second. So let me read parts of this and then we'll process together. This kid had no response to my attempt at the house tree person assessment. Since it was the first day, I did not know why. I've since learned that he doesn't have the skills to draw any of those things since he is barely 4. Do you just skip the house tree person assessment for young kids? I'm so glad you brought this up because this is something that I don't think that I've made very clear. And I remind people in coaching a lot, but I don't think I've said it a whole lot on the podcast. So we need to be aware that the house tree person and kinetic family drawing assessments are meant for 5 and up. In other words, they have been tested on children 5 and up. However, 5 is iffy. And here's what I mean by that. If it's a young 5 or a developmentally delayed 5 or an emotionally immature 5, they might not be suited for those drawings. So just because the child is 5, that's not a guarantee that it's an appropriate fit for them. So 6 is pretty safe. 6 and up is standard. You can pretty much guarantee that a child at 6 is capable of doing so. 5 is unknown, and anything under 5, we do not do that assessment with really young kids. And it's just exactly what you mentioned. They're often not capable of drawing those types of things. And it's pretty standard that when kids start kindergarten, they draw in class and they learn how to put shapes together to create objects and things like that. So once we get into that older 5 range, it's usually safe, but you need to just be really in tune to where the child is. And if you get a sense that it might not be the good fit, you can just bypass that altogether. And related aside, if you're not familiar with house tree person or kinetic family drawing, it is the only thing that we do at our center in the way of any kind of assessment. And it's just 4 drawings. So they draw a house, they draw a tree, they draw a person, they draw a picture of their family doing something together. And then there are some questions that they answer about the drawings, and it's a chance for us to get to know where the child is on week 1. And then we're able to provide some insight to parents at the first 5-week consultation. So if you're not at all familiar with that, you can certainly take a peek at the research and you can learn a little bit more about it. I've been doing it since I started doing CCPT. I learned about house tree person in grad school, and I just started very early on implementing that, and I love it. And I think that it provides so much insight. It kind of gives you like a little Polaroid of where the child is before you even get to know them on that first week. Okay, and then let's dive into the next question, which is about glue and paint. Another thing I've noticed is use of glue and paint. It seems like less of a therapeutic need to pour glue on the paper and more that he just has no idea how much he needs. I'm working on letting this go. Do you have some things you remove from your playroom for the little ones? And then in parentheses, I took my stapler out. Well, this is a multi-layered question, Mara, so let's look at each one separately. First and foremost, we do not remove anything from a playroom or add anything to a playroom based on age of the child. And if you find that you are doing that, that likely means that your playroom is not equipped according to CCPT guidelines. In other words, if you have things in there that would not be safe for a young child, that's not adherent to the model. If you have things that you feel are too costly or too concerning or too dangerous or whatever, then there's a reason why you're taking those out. They shouldn't be in there in the first place. We do not ever have staplers in our playroom unless they're the really tiny, small kiddie ones, like the ones that a child can fit in their hand. We don't have full big metal staplers in our playrooms. We do have scissors, but they are child scissors. We have small hole punchers. We have small staplers. We have tape dispensers. So you can have items like that, but be mindful, we don't take things in and out. So it's either in there all the time or it's never in there. We don't make adjustments according to which child happens to be in the playroom at any given moment. So that's addressing that. You're working on letting this go. All right. You and everyone else. So I'm glad you brought this up, Mara. We talk about this a lot on coaching and collective calls. If you choose, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm being very accurate here. If you choose to have consumable items in your playroom, such as glue, paint, tape, construction paper, pipe cleaners, stickers, pom-poms, sequins, God forbid, perler beads. I don't even know. This is not my jam, so I don't have any of this stuff, most of it. But whatever you have that can be used and therefore it's not going to be static. In other words, Legos, they stay in the playroom. We're not replacing Legos. Darts, they get broken sometimes, but they stay in the playroom. We're not replacing darts. If a child uses 8 pieces of construction paper, if they use entire bottles of paint, if they dump out an entire container of glue, if they use an entire spool of tape, all of that consumable, usable kind of, it's usually art and craft supplies and materials. That's kind of the category under which it falls, the creative artistic side of it. So when you have that kind of stuff in your playroom, if you choose to have that in your playroom, you choose to be okay with how it gets used. And or you pre-portion before every kid and every session. So here are your 2 options. You either, quote, let it go, as you mentioned, and you just have to say, these are the tools, kids need to do this. This is valuable, significant therapeutic work. If they dump the entire bottle of glue, they dump the entire bottle of glue. I'll put a new one in here tomorrow. That's one option. The other option is, I can't unconditionally accept this child. I can't allow this to behavior and maintain my acceptance. I don't have the funds to constantly be replacing all of this stuff. I have 4 other kids today, and if this kid uses all my glue, then no one else will have glue today. If any of those are considerations for you, then you can allocate a certain amount ahead of every session as part of your prep for the session. So you could put 3 pieces of construction paper, pre-portioned amounts of glue in Dixie cup, pre-portioned amounts of paint in Dixie cups, a certain amount of pipe cleaners, a certain amount of pom-poms, whatever you would set aside, it would be the same every single time for every single kid. Now, mind you, not every kid's going to use those things. So you may set that up at the start of the day, and it might be the 4th session before a kid even touches any of that stuff. So you're not necessarily restocking and replacing at the start of every session. But any session in which those items get used and taken home or thrown away or cut up into confetti or whatever, then you're going to replace what was used so that every child has the same pre-portioned amount. That's the way that you handle that kind of object in the playroom. Because if you are going to have it in there, you have to be okay with it being used. If not, you have to have it pre-planned out and every child gets a certain amount. And then when that is gone, it's gone for the day. And then they'll get new versions of it the next time. So that's kind of the way that you can navigate that. And then as far as him pouring glue on the paper, not knowing how much he needs versus that he needs to actually pour, you will have both. Sometimes kids just need to dump and pour and glug and glob and have it drip and have it run and have it go absolutely everywhere. And then sometimes they just are not capable of knowing how much they need. And it comes dumping out and they go, whoa, that was a lot. But they've still used half the bottle. And it wasn't on purpose. It was just the way that the circumstances unfolded. So you'll have both types of those kids. But in either scenario, you're either going to just accept it for what it is, or you're going to make a policy moving forward that every kid gets a certain amount. And neither is better or worse. It's just for each individual therapist. For me, I do not have liquid glue. I have glue sticks. I do not have liquid paint. I have watercolor paint. I have one roll of tape, but I have found that kids like masking tape far better than they like clear tape. So we kind of switched midstream to not really necessarily having clear Scotch tape. And we either have washi tape, we have masking tape, or I found this really cool roll of tape. I got several rolls of it. Oriental Trading had them on like crazy clearance, like 90% off or something. And it was essentially caution tape. So it was yellow with black writing on it, but it was sticky. And I don't remember what it said. It didn't say caution. I want to say maybe it said fragile or something. But anyway, I got a whole bunch of rolls of those, and kids strung that tape all across my room, from the bobo to the shelves to themselves to the chair to the whatever. And that was a lot of fun. So kids do like tape. But again, it's usually not to tape a few things together. It's usually to stretch it all over the place, make a spider web, make a laser maze, make a fort, make a trap, make whatever. So if it's in there, it's for use. And we need to be very intentional about setting the room up for success for us and for the child and for the model. If you choose to put something in there, it can't get under your skin when it gets used. It can't have you sitting there going, oh my gosh, that was like $8 worth of tape, and now it's literally spread off, and I'm going to take that down and I'm going to throw it all away, and no kid's going to get to use that again. You're no longer present. You're no longer attuned. You're no longer accepting. So this is kind of internal work that we have to do. We either say it doesn't matter. It's the cost of doing business. I have to invest in my playroom. I have to have a toy budget, and that's part of it. Or we work around that and we either don't have those items in there, or we decide how we're going to portion it out. I do not have any messy stuff in my room. I don't have glitter. I don't have sequins. I don't have pom-poms. I do have pipe cleaners, but I don't have anything that can spill, make a mess, just get embedded in stuff. I just don't have that because I can't deal with the cleanup of it. So that's my decision as a clinician, so that I can be fully present and fully unconditionally accepting. I just don't have that stuff in there. And my kids don't know that other playrooms have glitter. They don't know that other playrooms are making slime. Y'all that make slime, here is your high five. I'm happy for you that you're happy. I just, oh my gosh, the slime thing. I'm like, never have I ever wanted to have slime in my room. But if you do, I'm very happy for your kids, because I'm sure they're happy with you. You need to know yourself. You need to do your own work, and you need to come into the playroom setting everyone up for success, whatever that looks like. All right, y'all. I love you. Thank you for all the emails. Thank you for reaching out to me and saying hello and asking me questions. And I got some anniversary wishes. I got some baseball check-ins. So I love y'all. Thanks for caring about me and my family. I hope you have a great week. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.